And joining us right now talking about what's happening in the world of politics. Of course, we have our Democrat, Jeff Link, and Craig Robinson representing the Republicans this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. All right. Okay, what's on the docket today of what's happening in the world of politics?
Well, we've got a lot of activity around the Iowa caucuses. There's been a number of Democrats in the state in the last week, and we've got a new one coming in this next week. Bernie Sanders was in town.
We were feeling the burn again.
Yes, Sanders was everywhere. He was in western Iowa, Des Moines, eastern Iowa. Very different situation for Sanders this time.
I was going to say, is Des Moines still feeling the burn they had
for
him before?
They had a couple thousand people at the fairgrounds for his event.
Now, when he comes to town, when somebody of his caliber comes to town, does that energize the entire Democratic Party or just the Sanders followers?
Well, because we have so many candidates in this race, people kind of get segmented into their own candidate.
Because I would think that somebody goes, if I go see Bernie, then I'm not supporting the one I originally wanted to support.
Yeah,
right?
and I think most people at this point are still kicking the tires, and they will go see Bernie, and they'll go see Hickenlooper, for instance. I went to see Governor Hickenlooper from Colorado on Friday.
All right.
He had a nice crowd at his event. So, you know, there's people checking out all these different candidates at this point. And we had an Iowa poll that came out recently, and it showed that Joe Biden is still on top, even though he hasn't sort of announced which way he's going to go, whether he's getting in the race or not. And then Sanders was right next to him. And Sanders had actually moved up from the previous Iowa poll in December. And that's kind of surprising to go, you know, you kind of think you start out with a higher number and maybe you try and hold on to that, but he actually built up his number a little bit.
What I kind of find interesting is it's kind of two sides of the fence where you have the classics there, as you saw with Bernie and Joe Biden, you know, kind of the guys that have been in it for a while and have paid their dues, and then you have all this young blood coming up and saying, no, this is the wave of the future and this is what we have to do. So where are we going to lie?
You see this in other caucuses, whether it's a Republican caucus or a Democrat caucus, where a lot of times people who've run before start off with the advantage. I remember in 2016, Mike Huckabee was an early leader in the poll, someone who's won the caucuses before.
Right.
And so when I saw the Iowa poll results this weekend, and it wasn't just that Biden and Bernie were on top, but that they had significant leads. They each had over a 0.25% of the vote in that poll. My biggest, I always look at, if I was on a campaign, what would I think? My fear is, if I was one of those two candidates, is the only place I have to go is down. I mean, you know, how do you grow this in a huge, diverse field, like you said, that has a lot of young, energetic, new people that, and let's face it, this is a relationship game. Caucus campaigns are. You want to get to know people. You want to be where it's fun and new and different, and they'll allow you to do new things. And so, you know, I look at people who are always in that next tier, where I think Beto O'Rourke was at 7%. He's coming to town. He has room to grow and gain momentum. But as we saw in 2016 with the Republican caucuses, we had the flavor of the month. Every month we had a new leader in the poll. And so is this race for Democrats going to be consistent, or is there someone that's going to emerge? Do they pop and then go away, or can someone slowly grow their support?
Now, on the Republican side, what poses a bigger concern? Some of these veterans, so to speak, as in Biden and Sanders, or the rookies that are coming up?
It's a great question. I would fear the rookies more than the veterans. I think that's me personally. I think that the other thing that's going on is this Democrat caucus is going to push their party a little bit more to the left. I mean, if you look at Bernie Sanders and how he ran 4 years ago, the party has shifted to his side on a number of issues. And so I think that there's going to be a little bit, I think there'll be some big differences between Trump and whoever the Democrats nominate. But there's some really, I think those younger people, the Kamala Harris's, the Beto O'Rourke's, the Cory Bookers, watch them, because I think that those are people who have a dynamic personality that could really drive a campaign forward. I'd be more afraid of them than running against a upper 70s Bernie Sanders or upper 70s Joe Biden.
And are we becoming more comfortable? Because I feel like when Bernie was running the first time around, it's like, oh, he's a socialist, and we don't want to go that route. Where now it's like, oh yeah, come
the Democrat Party's like, well, we don't want to talk about those labels. Those labels don't matter. I mean, they've kind of embraced this notion, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how that. And on my side, how does Trump? Is it just word sparring that he's going to do, or is he really going to run a campaign that stipulates his vision of where America should be going as a capitalist nation versus the direction that the Democrats want to go? I don't know if he's capable.
I don't know that it's capitalist versus socialist as much as the appeal that Bernie had 4 years ago, and I think the reason why he's in the place he is right now is more that he's a populist. And ironically, Trump actually ran as a populist in 2016. Chuck Grassley's been a populist on and off for a lot of his career. Tom Harkin was a populist as a United States Senator. So that's really against the big institutions, against the giant corporations that are continuing to merge. And actually Sanders kind of broadened his message out and included agribusiness mergers, hurting small farmers. Well, that's not necessarily a socialist message, but it's a populist message.
Okay.
Well, and you have Elizabeth Warren talking about breaking up these large social media tech companies, you know, which is interesting, and it's not a conversation we shouldn't have in this country, I think, but it's interesting. I think we're going to tackle some of these bigger, different issues with this democratic process.
Yeah, this is going to be a major election this time around, and there's not going to be any opposition to Trump.
We don't know. Look,
because the question I'm going to ask you is, would somebody just be wasting their time on the Republican side to run against Trump?
Well, we had Larry Hogan, the mayor of Maryland, in town.
Governor,
sorry. What did I say?
Mayor,
sorry. No disrespect there. He was in town last week, and he is someone who he's a populist. He has really done well in a blue state, has high approval ratings, and he's a straight talker. And so he's someone who's term limited that I think maybe should put himself out there and challenge Trump, because I think a primary would be good for him anyway. And to sharpen his skills to get ready for
so to speak.
But I mean, the thing with Trump is you don't know what the situation is going to be a month from now, 2 months from now, or there could be a situation where Republicans are looking, we need to move on, we need to find someone else, because whatever happens. I mean, there's lots of investigations, all that. So I don't necessarily think primarying the president is a bad political move. It might actually pay off. So I could see someone doing it. I think Hogan is better positioned to do it than the John Kasich, the Jeff Flakes of the world, who are just antagonists towards the president.
Okay.
Lots to look forward to, and I know that's my thing. It's almost hard to concentrate on what's happening with our government right now. Just there's so much stimulus coming out, not necessarily good things that are great for our country, but just like what's wrong and what we're nitpicking and pulling apart. Although he has laid out the budget for to make America great again, it sounds like. So how are we going to learn more about that, and if that's going through?
We'll start reading more and more about it. You can start today, where people will start going through every level of this and talking about it. So it's complex, it's intense, it's a big number, and I'm sure we will be going through this in the weeks ahead.
Well, it's not that complex. It's actually pretty simple. Trump is promising us more than $1 trillion a year in deficit spending. More than $1 trillion a year. He complained all of 2016 about the fact that we had an $18 trillion debt. It's already $21 trillion. It's going to be $26 trillion just in the next 4 years, based on what they're promising. And at the same time, we're increasing the debt by $1 trillion a year. He wants to cut Medicare by $840 billion. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. How is it that you are going to continue to deficit spend at this level and yet cut USDA by 15%, cut Medicare by $845 billion? It is just, all the priorities are literally upside down in this budget.
All right, so a lot of questions still waiting to be answered.
And here locally, we're going through funnel week right now, and things are either surviving or they're getting tossed out. So anything locally that we need to keep our eye on?
Well, I think the big thing that may be addressed yet in March is sports betting.
Yeah.
It seems like the legislature wants to deal with this issue. They want to pass something and move on.
So that's not a done deal.
No, it's made it through the funnel, but I think they want to pass a bill in the House and Senate and send something to the governor. So that's something to watch here in the next couple of weeks.
And the pressure on that is because other states around us are doing it.
So people just cross the border.
Well, and so you don't want to, not get your hands on that kind of revenue. So that's why these legislators are motivated.
And it's ultimately going to migrate to online. And if we don't have it established before that migration goes on, then we could be totally left out.
Okay. Right. Lots of things to keep our eye on when it comes to the world of politics. Of course, we talk about it every Tuesday here on Iowa Live. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. You're watching Iowa Live here on CW Iowa 23. More heading your way, so keep it